Okay. Hope everyone had a nice lunch. I can't hear you. That's the energy. That's the energy. So first of all, hola Alicante. Woo! Are we all excited about React 19? I can't hear you. Woo! That's the spirit. I love the audience. Great. Okay, so I do know like we all have been loving 19, right? I have been seeing so much of enthusiasm inside the community. There's been so many articles, Twitter posts, and everyone's been loving React 19 so much. And since now React 19 is in the release canary, or we can say like in beta, there are tons of features that I want to discuss with all of you, be it like async transitions, server components, new forms, or new form APIs, actions, API upgrades, and like whatnot. There's a lot of different sort of features and improvements that have been coming in. But like first of all, I would like to say it's been the hard work of the entire React team, and of course, you folks, the amazing community. So I think let's take a moment and have a big round of applause for all of us to make it a success. Let's have a big round of applause, everyone. Awesome. So just before diving in, I'll not waste much of our time. I'm Nikhil. I'm from India. This is my first time here at React Alicante and also at this beautiful city of Alicante itself. I'm a person who loves to talk about design systems, performance, React, front-end in general. So in case you are up for some chat, I'd love to connect with all of us. I'll be here. I'll be available at GitHub, LinkedIn, and also Twitter. I'll leave some links here in the slide for us to connect. So let's just dive in. What is there in React 19? Starting up with the first thing, which is what's out of the box. And by out of the box, I mean the React compiler. Now, why I'm saying React compiler is out of the box? The primary reason being is, it's also me that I had got earlier like confused that React 19 also like gives in compiler as well. But the thing is, it's not actually a part of React 19, but as per React's documentation, it says you require React 19's to be helpful to be enabling React compiler. So thanks for Aurora as well and other folks who have been like sharing these knowledge on Twitter as well. So just one thing to keep in mind. So understanding now the architecture, like how React 19 actually works. I'll keep it a little bit simple for us since this is a lightning talk. It actually comprises of three things. You'll see a Babel plugin, there's an ESLint plugin, and there's the compiler code that handles the logic of actually performing the optimizations. Now, how many of us remember this sort of waterfall sort of a graph? A raise of hands. How do people know, like, or do people know that what does this thing do? Okay, thank you, 8.5 people. So how we usually know the syntax or like the code compilation works is we have a source code. It goes into a tokenizer or how like it gets generated into an abstract syntax tree. And then there's an intermediate code that's generated, and then we get the final code after the evaluation of it, right? That's the core process, how things work. Now, if you look at it at the angle of React's compiler itself, the Babel plugin is actually working under the scenes to make sure your code, that is your functions, your hooks, everything, gets converted into an abstract syntax tree. And it is the ESLint plugin now that knows what are the rules of React. Are you writing React as per its rules, like using the right way of hooks, using hooks and all. And the compiler core actually uses its knowledge and performs optimizations, dead code eliminations, and applies sorts of, as I said, optimizations where it makes sure that you don't have to worry about fixing your apps for re-renders that are happening like too much in your application, which means you might not need to use memo or hooks like use callback while you're using the compiler. Now, how to use this compiler itself in your React 19 project? The process is pretty simple. You just need to use React compiler health check. This package is going to help you know in case your components inside your React 19 project are capable of, or like they have some optimization capabilities that React compiler can do something onto it. And once you see that, yes, I can do something on, you need to install this plugin for the compiler, which is ESLint plugin, React compiler, and just directly use it inside your ESLint config, and that's it. You'll have your React compiler running onto you. And you can see this and verify this. If you see this image on the right-hand side, you'll see that your React compiler is actually doing some memorizations and optimizations for you under the hood itself. So this was the gist of the React compiler. Let's go to the next step, which is our very favorite server components. So to wrap things, to start things with a short story, how SSR works is something that we all know, right? With SSR, how things happened is there's a client, it requests a resource from your server actually gives you a very static content without the JavaScript, it just loads a static page for you, it gives it back to the client then gets the JavaScript, hydrates it there, and then you get the final output as your final page that's interactive, right? Now, there were some problems, as you all know, associated with SSR, right? So obviously, it's for the initial load. The initial load is faster. You get to see at least something on the page. But the thing is, this section, that is the JS bundle, can we do something so that the client actually has to download lesser of JavaScript altogether, right? Because in SSR, everything is still a client component, right? We haven't done anything or any optimization to make sure our JavaScript bundle is reduced, right? So that is where the server components actually help you by rendering the code that is non-interactive on the server. And how that happens is basically a simple process, right? Again, we'll have some resource fetched by the client to the server. And now the server is going to render your non-interactive content, that is your server components, onto the server itself. And it's going to outsource that responsibility of the interactivity of your page to your clients itself. And it's going to communicate it with the client via this very crazy-looking data. Only the client knows this. And you'll finally get the exact output, right? Now, this is an example, a very simple example for this talk for the server components. You'll see, since it's rendering on the server, you have this advantage of utilizing the server-related capabilities like your databases on the fly. So you can utilize your database, your caches, everything that can be utilized here itself. You can do the mutations here, and since they are rendered on the server, they don't provide any interactivity. You won't see any use effects or on-clicks onto those server components at all. And in case you want to, since we are speaking of interactivity, you can just do it with the use client directive, and your server component gets converted into a client component. Like by default, just a TLDR, by default, every component that we create, for example, let's say in the app folder of Next.js, that's a server component by default. But you can easily change it to a client component. And your DOM tree is actually going to look something like this on the right, that what React's envision is for it. And which means there's no JavaScript, as I mentioned, for server components, right? And it in turn means that now you had shifted your load to some extent to load your JavaScript a bit on the server and a bit on the client. So your client actually gets a little bit of lesser of JavaScript now, which is good, obviously. All right, moving on to the third thing, form actions. With form actions now, and I would say not now, like let's say right now, how we build forms is something like this, right? A simple use state, and we'll have an on-change handler to update the state, and we'll have a form that will submit the state with this, let's say, the handle submit function. This is a basic way of how we build the forms. But this can get a little bit hefty, right? Like as the new iterations come in, as in new features are going to get requested, for example, pending states, errors, and whatnots, this code is going to get bigger and bigger. Now I want to make this code a little bit of a cleaner and a concise build code, which is where I really liked actions for that. So actions actually help you make this code a little bit cleaner by reducing all of the boilerplate for maintaining states and stuff using useState. So if you see in this example, you would have an action prop right now with the form component. And now this action prop also accepts your submit function that you're going to use for submitting the form. And once you use it, you'll see you're no longer using your events or e.prevent default, all of that stuff. You have your access to the form data right in without any use states. You'll just use form data.get with the name of the input field, and you have access to the data, which is good. There's also one state pending, which I missed, which is this is pending state, which is also something that I want to reduce. I want to also get rid of use state altogether, which is where use transition would also be helpful for us. Now with React 19, you have access to async functions that can be used inside your start transition function. So I've wrapped everything, all the logic inside my code that was async inside the start transition, and I don't have to now create a use state for is pending because it's going to handle it altogether for you whenever this action gets completed. Coming on to the next hook, that is use action state. Now this hook also takes form management to another step by giving you another API that is use action state hook. You again get access to handle submit. You just give it handle submit function, and you also can give it an initial state. Like if you see in this code snippet in line 4 to 6, you'll see that I'm giving it a default state of a user and an error state as well. And how I am like updating the state is inside my handle submit function itself. So every time I'm at least returning a state. The state can be either of a success state or it can be an error state. And this state will automatically make sure that whatever I'm returning reacts, the form is actually going to get updated based on that. And the rest part remains the same as we had for actions. So this was use action state. Now let's say you had created a component, like you had a parent component of form, and there are tons of different child components that you've divided it into. So use form status actually helps you to get the data or like get the state of the form or of your parent component forms in which this child is. For example, here in the submit function, in the submit component, I am actually using use form status to know, hey, what was the current state of this parent? Is the form pending or not? What's the form data about it? And you can utilize it in your child components. So this is where use form status actually comes in handy. In case you are willing to dive deep into it, you're really interested about forms, I would really recommend watching Aurora's talk, which was, I think, yesterday. So I'd highly recommend it. It was a good talk. Going ahead, there's another very good hook. And I would not say hook. It's like an API, having like a shift of how you actually try to handle or load resources onto your components. So use actually, in simple terms, just helps you in doing primarily two things. You can either give it a promise, and you can combine it with the suspense block so that whenever this promise inside your component is being resolved, you'll get a loading state. And as it resolves, the suspense is going to remove that fallback loader for you, and it's going to load your component with this use. And simply happens with the context as well. So with the context API, you can just give it whatever your context object is, give it inside form, give it inside the use, and you'll be good to go. Things would be working as expected. Okay, coming on to the fifth thing, which is the improvements. So apart from the feature, there have been also some improvements coming in React 19 as well. First of all, which is something that I've been also waiting for quite some time, is now you don't need to use forwarding of refs when you are passing them down to your components. Instead, now ref becomes a prop itself for you. So you can just use it as a normal prop. And speaking of refs, now just as use effect, there is also the ability for a cleanup function that you can use by returning a function, and you can use any sorts of cleanups on those refs. For example, removing any sorts of event listeners or canceling any subscriptions, anything like that. Coming on to the context API, the context API also has a very minor change where you don't need to now use theme context.provider. Instead, you can just directly use theme context and wrap all of your componentry inside of it, and everything works just as expected. All right, with React 19, I also like this particular improvement, which was having different sorts of errors as developers. Like if you have different errors coming in, for example, in this case, right, there's a hydration error, and I see 4 different sorts of errors. They're actually pointing to the same problem, but they're like sort of divided. I like them something like this that now React 19 provides you. So there's a very small but a very significant change, I would say, that the errors now become like a little more I would say, arranged now. So it looks better. You have everything at the simple place, and you can stay focused on fixing those errors. Coming to document metadata is another improvement that has been coming in React 19. Now, with this, earlier what we used to do is, in case you wanted to insert some metadata onto your components, you would either have to use effect to add them to your page, or you would need to do is like use an external library like React Helmet, right? But with this, React has become even smarter. Now, in case any of your components has a metadata like title, meta tags, or even link tags, it's going to automatically hoist them up and add them into your whatever your head tag is, and it's going to insert them accordingly. Similarly, things work with link components as well. In case you're loading style sheets, you can combine this again with the suspense block. Give it a loading state, and it's going to suspend your component by the time the resources are loading, and you get the component's data by the time this resource loads, which is good. Also, as an addition to this, in case you are loading resources using prefetch, preconnect, so React 19 even offers you the option of these functions itself. So you can use pre-init, preload, prefetch, preconnect, all of these functions itself, and you can utilize them. And the beauty of this part is React is automatically going to take care of the order itself whenever it's going to hoist these contents up to your head component. And automatically take care of means that whatever is the priority of all of the order in which they need to load, React's going to take care of them and load them in the right order. All right. We have seen enough of features, right? I know like it's like a super fast-paced talk because I wanted to discuss so many things with you, but it's a time constraint. But there are so many talks. All right, we are convinced how to upgrade it. So the process is also simple for that as well. Simply, we would need to just update React and React DOM's version by using the latest canary release. In case you're using TypeScript, I would also recommend changing the types to be also of this same version. So make sure you update your types for React and React DOM as well. And you can just use them instead of using the render API inside of your main app. You would just need to do create root from React DOM/client, and things should work seamlessly. But if these are working seamlessly, are we ready for testing them out in production apps? I would say like you can, but it would be at your own sort of risk, because since React is still looking for early feedback from all of us, it's advisable to, like, it's fine if things are, you're trying them out or like you're fiddling with these contents of React 19, but not advisable, I would say, in production. There are also some removed APIs. I'll just skim through them since we have like some time constraint, but if you're using prop types, default props, if you're using React DOM.render, hydrate, all of these props are now going to be removed in React 19. So make sure you remove them before upgrading it in case you're migrating from your existing project to React 19. Good news is like they have some code mods for you as well. There's just one command, and you can have all of these right at your code base with just one command. One thing that I would also recommend is for people who are like very eager to go to React 19 is maybe shifting first to React 18.3, because 18.3 actually gives you all of these warnings for actually helping you migrate and like helping you become ready for starting with React 19. So this is also another option that also React provides you with. All right, so I think enough of the talking. I won't bore all of us anymore. So thanks a lot for joining the talk, and hope you have an amazing day at the conference. Thanks a lot.